What's up guys, and welcome back to the Kamui Dimension for yet another super juicy video. Today we're talking about the Kara Actuation Arc, which I believe is the best anime-only arc in Boruto so far, and I'm going to explain why I think that this arc really should have been in the Boruto Manga instead of the Mujina Bandits Arc. Had this been the case, I think less people would have dropped the manga a few years ago, and it would have also made the Kara organization a lot better than it was in the manga, and I'm going to explain exactly why that is and how I would have gone about it. First, I want you to think about what the Mujina Bandits arc was meant to do for the story. What did it accomplish? It gave us a little maturity for Boruto's character, gave us one tiny scene of Boruto's karma mark being activated, and it name-dropped Kara at the end. That's it. There wasn't a tonal shift in the manga like there was in the anime because it came right after the Momoshiki arc. Meanwhile, the Kara Actuation Arc gave us way more growth from not only Boruto's character, but Sarada as well, and even a bit from Mitsuki, Konohamaru, and Mugino, who we didn't even know anything about before he was killed by Ao later on in the manga. It gave both us and the characters way more of an introduction to Kara by showing us Kara, rather than just telling us the name Kara, and we could have easily just added that exact same scene with Boruto's karma, and I'll explain how later in the video. But first, let me explain these points further. Firstly, Deepa is just a way better villain and character than Shijoji. Why do I say that?
You ask, why?
I plan to make a few separate videos about Deepa, so I don't want to go too in depth here, but he's way more charismatic and enjoyable. He had a goal and a plan to reach that goal. He was an inner member of Kara and served as an introduction to Kara without Team 7 knowing it, and he pushed Boruto and Sarada along a crap ton mentally and physically. We also got some of the best moments in Boruto for me personally, like when Deepa just laughs at Boruto and Sarada for 30 seconds, and when he trolls them and pretends Boruto's Rasengan is hurting him, and then says, "Just kidding," and flicks his dude across the battlefield. He beat them up so bad that Mitsuki had to nearly kill himself using his sage power to save them and escape from Deepa, and this actually would have given us a logical explanation for why Mitsuki never uses his sage power in the manga, particularly against Boro. The manga hasn't given us a single reason for why Mitsuki doesn't use his sage power. It never mentions the drawbacks it has on him physically, or how Orochimaru doesn't want him to use it in front of everybody. Only the anime does that. But this arc would have shown us why he didn't use it against Boro. Because it might have killed him, so he would only ever use it as a last resort if he saw no other way. Boruto and Sarada then became so determined to get stronger because of this fight with Deepa, that they had a whole training arc where Sarada was training her Sharingan, and Boruto learned 2 new Rasengans, where the high compression Rasengan ended up being key to defeating Deepa, and it seems like it might be an influence on the Rasengan we see Borushiki use later on in the manga. Shijoji didn't do shit for Boruto's development compared to Deepa, and he didn't do anything at all for Sarada and Mitsuki, or for Konohamaru and Mugino, who fought against Victor, and speaking of Victor, this dude was complete garbage in the manga. Not a single person cared about this dude before the Kara Actuation Arc came to the anime. The Mujina Bandits didn't really have much of a goal or a plan of how to get it, they didn't move the plot along that much, and they didn't really motivate the protagonist to develop in response either physically or mentally to the conflict in the story. Victor and Deepa just did a way better job with all of these points. Secondly, this arc introduced Kara way better than the Mujina Bandits arc did, where all they did was name drop the organization at the end, and that's it. Name dropping Kara really isn't that important. We don't need to know the name of the group the first time we see any of its members for it to be a good introduction. When Itachi and Kisame showed up in the Leaf Village wearing the Akatsuki robes, we didn't know the name of the Akatsuki organization or that there were more members yet. We didn't know until Kakashi said it, and we got a flashback of Jiraiya talking about his intel from when Orochimaru was in the Akatsuki. We could have easily gotten something similar here, where Team 7 runs into Victor and Deepa, and then Sasuke and Sai can run into that guy in the Rain Village when on a mission to investigate some of Sasuke's findings about a
mysterious organization
Sasuke heard a rumor about. And this is where they run into that guy and hear the name Kara. And then they put the pieces together at the end that maybe Victor and Deepa were members of the Kara organization. Kind of like when Jiraiya talked about the Akatsuki and Kakashi understood that Itachi and Kisame were members of the organization and after Naruto. It's that easy. In addition, Victor and Deepa's actions actually served as a good introduction to Kara's gold when you think about it. Why do I say that?
Seriously? You asked why?
Kara's mission was ultimately to grow a divine tree and produce a chakra fruit, and Jigen would grant each member a wish for their help, which is a really important topic in Boruto right now, and if you've seen my 2 recent videos about Amado's master plan, you know exactly why that is, and I'll leave a link in the comments for those of you who are new to the channel. But Victor and Deepa were literally trying to grow a divine tree and produce a chakra fruit too. Victor just didn't want to wait around for Kawaki to be ready since he was dying, so he made a plan to create a divine tree with Hashirama cells, and Deepa just went along with it for shits and giggles. But it was actually a good way of introducing this plan that Kara had, which the Mujina Bandits didn't do at all. Not only that, we had an episode that gave us the story for why Victor was even killed off by Kashin Koji to begin with, and what his involvement with the vessel even was. Like I said, Victor is trash in the manga. If you're gonna include a character like Victor and Kara and you're gonna have Kashin Koji kill him off, you really should introduce us to the character at least a little bit, like the anime did with this arc, and you should probably not give us the most vague scene in the world for why Victor was killed off. The manga scene was just weird to me. It looked like Victor messed something up, but we really weren't given anything for what exactly he did, or why he was asking where Amato was, and we knew nothing about his character. The scene was pretty much irrelevant, so why even write Victor in the story at that point? Thirdly, the traitor in Kara was a fairly big plot point in the story, and the Kara Actuation Arc in those transition episodes really set the foundation for this with Victor's betrayal. I know that episode with Victor technically is in the transition episodes going to the Vessel Arc, but if you remove the other transition episodes, it really just works as being the end of the Kara Actuation Arc. And fourthly, this arc brought Orochimaru and his Hashirama skills directly into the story and had him beat up Victor, which I think a lot of fans liked to see considering how he is completely absent in the manga. Hopefully by this point you see why this arc would have made more sense to be included in the manga over the Mujina Bandits arc. But before we talk about how to implement this into the manga, if you guys are enjoying the video so far, be sure to like the video and leave a comment below to let me know you like it, and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon because chances are you'll enjoy the other videos on the channel. Now let's talk about how to incorporate this arc. Obviously the arc has some flaws and there are definitely a bunch of unnecessary things in it, so we're going to go ahead and remove those to make the arc a little shorter and just let the anime do what it normally does, where it adds those extra scenes. We'll start the arc with that opening scene of Deepa that we got where he eats whatever the hell that was, and jumps off a cliff, and have Sasuke in sight investigating the Rain Village for a
mysterious organization,
where they run into that guy and hear the name Kara. And then we have that meeting with Kara when Jigen talks about how an experiment facility wasn't shut down when it was supposed to be, and so we kind of get the hints that Victor has been using it for experiments behind Jigen's back. And then we have Team 7 go on that mission to find that woman's lost husband. They run into Victor and realize that he's looking for the Hashirama cell, and this can be our first chapter, Chapter 11. Now we can really just speed through the shenanigans where Team 7 tries to get the Hashirama cell first and transforms into that medic guy from the mist, and meets up with that horrendously ugly guy, and them going into the Land of Silence to steal it from that old woman and getting chased around by all of the mercenaries. We don't need to waste time with this stuff. This can literally all happen within Chapter 12. During this time, we can keep the scenes of Deepa looking for the Hashirama cell and killing people in the restaurant after getting depressed that his food was tasteless. Then when it comes to the Hidden Haze Ninja, the anime never really gave us a whole lot with their backstories, only glimpses, so we don't need to spend so much damn time with these guys and their fights and stalling, since they were never meant to be anything too important anyway. Let's begin the Hidden Haze Ninja stuff in Chapter 12, use them to separate Team 7 from Omoe's team, who will fight and lose against Deepa, and wrap up the Hidden Haze Ninja stuff by the end of Chapter 13, when Deepa shows up and knocks him out, where we can then begin the main event of Team 7 vs Deepa and Konohamaru and Mugino vs Victor. Chapter 14 can be dedicated to this battle, ending with Mitsuki activating Sage Mode to save Boruto and Sarada. In Chapter 15, we can see the fallout of this battle. Mitsuki is near death and Orochimaru is trying to save him. Boruto and Sarada are completely wrecked about what happened and become motivated to get stronger so that this never happens again, and they begin their training arc, and then Konohamaru and Mugino get set out on their mission to investigate Victor some more. In Chapter 16, Boruto and Sarada can continue training, and we get the Deepa vs Team Shikadai and Team Shinki fight, where Deepa just washes them in like 30 seconds, and then we get that second restaurant scene with Deepa looking depressed about his food and killing everyone, and then at the end of Chapter 16, we see the results of Boruto and Sarada's training. Then in Chapter 17, Boruto and Sarada are sent out to back up Konohamaru and Mugino, where they are investigating Victor's facility and find out that Victor has been manipulating the feudal lord and is doing human experiments with the Hashirama cell. In Chapter 17, the Divine Tree gets awakened and the battle begins for Konohamaru. Meanwhile, Mugino takes the feudal lord away, where he is then confronted by that female outer member, and the chapter finishes off with Deepa approaching Team 7 and laughing for several panels. Then in Chapter 18, we get the Team 7 vs Deepa rematch in Konohamaru vs Victor, and then Orochimaru shows up, turns the outer member into dust, Mitsuki shows up to save Boruto and joins the battle, and Orochimaru beats up Victor and so on, and at some point during the battle we can have Boruto's karma activate like it did against Sojoji. Maybe either right after they hit Depot with the super high compression Rasengan, and Boruto exhausts his chakra or something, and then he's paralyzed for a moment, or perhaps it activates in a more offensive manner and actually helps power the super high compression Rasengan, and Deepa sees it and is like... And then after he gets hit, he says, well, it doesn't matter. I was so close to getting to taste again. And then he dies. That honestly would have made more sense to me anyway than what happened in the first place. Like, why did Boruto's karma even activate against Shojoji?
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Then in chapter 19, we get the fallout of this chapter and Victor's shenanigans with Kara, where he wants to steal the vessel, but Amato and Kashinkoji crash his blimp. And then in chapter 20, we begin the story as we originally did in chapter 16 of the actual manga. Obviously, there are things I'd have changed personally, but that's going to be a topic for a future video. That's not the point of today's video. The point is that this arc was more interesting and entertaining than the Mujina Bandits arc in my opinion. It brought way more conflict, growth, and development for our main characters, explained some of the vague stuff with Victor in the manga, and it just did a much better job of building up the Kara organization. It did everything the Mujina Bandits arc did, but better. Now, start to finish, the Mujina Bandits arc was 4 chapters, and obviously this arc is going to have to be a bit longer than that because there's just way more to it, but that's not going to be a problem because the arc itself is a lot more interesting than the Mujina Bandits arc was to begin with, and so people would gain interest sooner than they did originally. In the format I laid out here, I purposefully tried to structure it so that we would move faster through the slower parts and spend more time with the more interesting and important parts, giving us 8 chapters between the Momoshiki and Vessel arcs instead of 4, but you can honestly probably still get away with stretching this arc out a little bit longer and make it more like 10 chapters, or condense it to make it more like 6 chapters if you wanted to. But I think what I laid out would have been a pretty good fit for the story. But I really want to hear what you guys think. After watching this video, do you guys agree with me that it would have been better if the Kara Actuation Arc had been in the manga in place of the Mujina Bandits arc, and we instead had the Mujina Bandits as our anime-only arc? Let me know in the comment section below. For those of you who made it this far, thank you so much for the support, but I do have to remind you that
you're already under my genjutsu.
So subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, and hit that bell icon for notifications. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!